Wednesday, February 19th, the Board of Finance of the Town of Madison is now in session. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I need a motion to approve the minutes from January 15, 2025 and January 22nd, 2025. So I get a second.
Second.
Any amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Chair's comment. So Katie had something to do with her family tonight. She's not here. I'm not sure if she's going to be on. And I did talk to the first select woman. It's a light agenda. I said Peggy could have the night off, so she's not going to be here. Those are my comments. Any finance member committee comments? John, I'll start. John, you want to introduce yourself officially? I know you were here before, so.
Good evening, John Muller, new member of the Finance Committee. Here, lived in town since 1988. I found my way to the town offices recently. Before working there.
On behalf of myself and chair of the board, and welcome, looking forward to working together. Any other finance member comments? Okay.
Yeah. So two comments. First, as liaison to EDC, Mr. Andrew Wood, chair, had asked me about two questions. One was about electing or nominating a new member. So we're working on that, the RTC. But the second one, he was asking about if there's any funds that were available to the chamber and to EDC. So Stacy and Kristen helped me out with that. We did find out that there is a fund back, two funds. There's a balance in each, totaling just over $5,000. So I made them aware of that, so just to carry that through. Second comment is, appreciate the Board of Education meeting or the workshop that we had. I believe it was last week. Didn't feel that my question was answered, and Dr. Cook showed the percent change of the budget from last year and how in our DRG that is the best. But what we wasn't able to provide was the cost per student. So I do respectfully request that Board of Finance does bring the Board of Education here for presentation.
Sure. Well, I think why don't we do that during the budget session? I remember just doing like John did the same thing as I did. If you back out the special education budget, it comes to around 21,000. So I think it's numbers with them. But I will absolutely ask them to come to one of our budget sessions. As far as the 5,000, did you commit that for anything?
No. I just pointed it out.
Having a little fun now. Any other comments from the finance committee? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, as the liaison to Beach and Rec, lot going on there with their master plan. It's not a lot to report, but just there will be as this planning document moves forward. So interesting goings on there.
Thanks. Any other comments? Report, as I said, Bruce Selectman, I did speak with Peggy. She's off tonight. We have next is citizen comments. Anybody from the public would like to speak? Name and address for the record, sir.
Ed Dowling, Hammonasset Meadows, with the Madison Board of Police Commission. I just will be very, very brief. This information has all been presented, so it's just a very quick reminder. The facts haven't changed in terms of the ratio of Madison police off the low ratio of Madison police officers compared to the population. When we look at other towns along the shoreline, as well as other benchmark communities. The operational efficiency hasn't changed in terms of what was presented at the joint meeting, the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen last month, in terms of the requirements of officers handling domestic disputes and emergencies. You Captain York presented the number of minutes that are required to respond to those kinds of situations. So that data hasn't changed. And finally, I think the issue comes down to the values in terms of looking at continuing investments in the Madison Police Department. Seeing the surveys in terms of the importance we all place in terms of public safety for ourselves, our family, and our property. So our request for an additional officer is not above and beyond. It's gone through at least 3 discussion meetings with the Board of Police Commission, vetting it before it was submitted to a budget. The question came down in terms of the timing of what that additional position might be. People may recall last year, we asked for an additional position in the 24-25 budget. It was late in the fiscal year. In terms of the Board of Selectmen deferred it until the 25-26 budget. We understand it has since been moved back to the end of the 25-26 budget, April 26th. We are in a constant recruitment process in terms of having adequate staff. So the question is, the sooner in the fiscal year that we can get this position approved, the more likely potentially we're in a position to offer a qualified candidate to come in and go through the training. The recruitment of a experienced officer is extraordinarily difficult. We've had a terrific success in the caliber of officers we've been able to recruit to go through police training academy, but the timing of those police academies occur throughout the next 12-month fiscal year. And so our request is to get your approval in terms of this position as early as practical in the fiscal year so that it gives the chief and his leadership team the opportunity to recruit. We've enjoyed what we think is a terrific partnership with the Board of Selectmen in terms of going forward with requests and with the Board of Finance in terms of their key role in reviewing this process. We have not come forward every year with requests for additional staff. We've been very prudent in that regard. And so, but this is where we're at, I think, a key point in assuring we have adequate staff. The single most effective public safety aspect is a qualified, trained officer who's available to respond. Cameras are a terrific tool. The other systems we have are terrific tools, but that officer who is able to respond when somebody picks up the phone or an incident occurs is the single most effective deterrent we have. And we're asking for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dallin. As you know, this is a public session. There's no dialogue back and forth. We appreciate the comments. I will say if the Board of Finance would like to have you or the chief or someone come with a budget session, I will let you know. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Anybody else in the public like to speak?
Well,
ahead,
I
Chief.
concur
Name
with the
and address.
chairman. I mean, it's very difficult. It's difficult to retain police officers, let alone final officers today. It's not just Madison, it's across the state, all across this country. I have another officer come in today who announced he was resigning. He was joining the North Haven Police Department. He's a pension system, other benefits. That's the third of the new ones that we've hired in the last 2 years. So.
Chief, just your name and address. We all know who you are, but name and address for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jack Brown, Chief of Police, 9 Campus Drive, Madison, Connecticut.
Thank you.
I apologize.
That's okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public would like to speak? Second time, being out, see anybody there. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Mr. Dallin. Third time, public information session is now closed. New business, discuss take action, police funds. I'm going to hold this to the next meeting. I have a number of questions I want to ask. I know Katie did too. I'm sure other members did. So we're going to hold item 7. We have a presentation of fiscal year ending for fiscal 24, audited financial statements. I'm going to unmute them.
Evening. Everyone can hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Yes, Michael, thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Excellent. All right. Well, good evening. My name again is Mike Van Deventer, and I'm a partner at Mahoney Sable, ultimately responsible for overseeing the audit work and issuing the reports on behalf of the firm. Joining me this evening is Lauren Messina. Lauren is a senior manager at the firm. Lauren was really responsible for the day-to-day execution of our audit procedures. So hopefully by now you should have received several reports that were issued in connection with the audit. I am going to go through a presentation with you that will really cover the scope of work, the audit reports that were issued. I'll provide some overall financial highlights, and then I'll make our required communications. And again, happy to answer any questions that any of the board members may have. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and share the presentation. Okay, as far as the scope of work, turning to slide 2, again, no changes in the scope of work from prior years. We did do an audit of the town's financial statements. We performed that audit in accordance with both the auditing standards issued by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the government auditing standards issued by the Government Accountability Office. In addition, based on the level of federal and state funding that was received and expended by the town, we did perform both federal and state single audits. We also provide or perform an agreed upon procedures engagement on the end of school year reports that are filed by the school district with the state of Connecticut Department of Education. In addition to those test services, we also perform some non-audit services for the town. So again, we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance, as well as the related notes. We also assist in converting the town's governmental fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements. In order for us to be able to perform those services and remain independent of the town, management is required to oversee those services and ultimately accept responsibility for them. Again, Stacy Novitz, as the Director of Finance, accepted responsibility for those services, and therefore we have remained independent of the town. In connection with the audit, we do issue a number of reports. The first report on the financial statements, we did issue unmodified opinions on the town's financial statements. Again, an unmodified opinion is expressed when we've concluded that the financial statements have been prepared in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and that is as established by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. I do like to point out that our opinion does provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from a material misstatement, whether due to error or fraud. Again, we do not provide absolute assurance. We do not test every transaction. We do utilize sampling in our audit methodology. The financial statements do include some significant estimates, and therefore we cannot provide absolute assurance. But again, reasonable assurance is still a very high level of assurance. In addition to the report on the financial statements, we also issue a report on compliance and on internal control over financial reporting. In this report, we do not actually express an opinion on the town's compliance with laws and regulations or on the effectiveness of the town's internal controls. Essentially, during the course of performing the audit on the financial statements, if we become aware of instance of non-compliance with laws and regulations, or what we consider to be a significant deficiency or material weakness in your internal controls over financial reporting, we are required to include it in this report. And again, we did not report any such matters. In connection with the federal single audit, we issue a report on compliance and on internal control at the federal award level. In this report, we do actually express an opinion on the town's compliance with the major federal programs. For fiscal year 2024, the total federal awards that were expended by the town was approximately $3.7 million. The coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, or the ARPA funds, was the major program. We did issue unmodified clean opinions on compliance over that program. And again, we did not report any deficiencies over grant compliance. We issue a similar report in connection with the state single audit. Again, for fiscal year 2024, the total state financial assistance that was expended by the town was approximately $5 million. The majority of that is your education cost sharing funds, which is exempt from the single audit testing. The portion that was not was approximately 1.5 million. The major programs were the tiered payment in lieu of taxes and the town aid road grant program. Again, issued unmodified clean opinions on compliance over those programs, and we did not report any deficiencies over grant compliance. So again, from a board perspective, the reporting was very clean in terms of the financial statements and the compliance audit. Next section goes over some overall financial highlights. Again, to the extent we identified any concerns from a financial perspective, we would make those communications as part of these financial highlights. The first slide goes over your general fund budgetary highlights. Again, the original budget provided for the use of fund balance in the amount of 500,000. Your final budget did include additional appropriations of approximately 2.4 million. So that did result in a planned use of fund balance in the amount of 2.9 million. Your actual change in fund balance on a budgetary basis was an increase of about 4.1 million. So overall, that resulted in a favorable budgetary variance of approximately 7 million, which was really driven by your surplus from revenues and other financing sources. You had very favorable variances on property tax revenue, state funding, charges for services, as well as investment income. And then overall expenditures were only about 463,000 less than budget. And again, no budgetary compliance issues were identified in connection with the audit work. Next slide goes over your governmental fund financial statement highlights. Again, these statements include the general fund on a GAAP basis, as well as all of your special revenue and capital project funds. The town was reporting combined ending fund balances of approximately 70.2 million as of year end. Again, that was an increase of about 22.2 million from the prior year. The majority of that, well, not the majority of it, but approximately 25.9 million of that is in your general fund. That was an increase of about 4.3 million from the prior year, really driven by the overall budgetary surplus. Of the 25.9 million, 24.2 was considered unassigned, and that's sufficient to cover just about 2.9 months and represented about 24.8% of your fiscal year 2025 general fund budgetary appropriations. Again, the GFOA issues guidance to governments. Their recommendation is that all governments maintain approximately 2 months worth of reserves. So again, you are meeting that reserve requirement. In addition, the Capital Projects Fund had an ending fund balance of about 40.7 million, which was an increase of about 17.8 million from the prior year. Again, the town has a number of significant capital projects that are ongoing, including the school projects. The increase in that fund was really attributed to the issuance of debt for the purpose of funding those projects. And then all of your other funds had an ending fund balance of approximately 3.5 million, which was a decrease of about 41,000 from the prior year. Again, no fund deficits were reported in the financial statements. Next slide goes over your internal service fund. The town is self-insured for health care benefits. The total unrestricted net position of the fund was about 4.1 million. That represents approximately 3.6 months of the operating expenses. Again, typically the recommendation that we provide is to maintain anywhere between 3 and 6 months. So again, you are meeting those reserve requirements as well. The last slide or section goes over your government-wide financial highlights. So the government-wide financial statements include your governmental fund financial statements converted to a full accrual basis of accounting. That includes all the town's capital assets as well as long-term liabilities. The focus on the government-wide financial statements is typically on your long-term liabilities and the funded status of those liabilities. Overall, the town's unrestricted net position was approximately 10.7 million. Again, the unrestricted net position was really driven by your overall reserves that you have in your general fund and in other funds. Looking at your pension and OPEB benefits, again, the town was reporting a net pension liability of approximately 10.3 million as of year end. That fund is approximately 71.6% funded using a discount rate of about 6.75%. The police plan net pension liability was about 6.8 million. Again, that plan was about 68% funded using a discount rate also of about 6.75%. And then the fire plan had a net pension liability of about 703,000. That plan is about 81% funded, again, using a discount rate of just a little bit lower, 6.5%. The town also reports a total OPEB liability for retiree healthcare benefits. That liability totaled approximately 13.4 million. Right now, the town has not established a trust for the purpose of funding those benefits. So again, that's 0% funded using a discount rate of 3.9%. And again, the town continues to fund that those benefits on a pay-as-you-go basis. And then the last slides go over our required communications. Again, these communications are really geared towards when the auditor runs into issues in connection with the audit. Again, we did not have any significant issues, I'm happy to report, but I'll go through these communications. The first item here talks about a responsibility under our auditing standards. Although we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, they are the responsibility of the town. It's our responsibility to perform our audit procedures and express our opinions on those statements. In terms of the overall plan, scope, and timing of the audit, again, no changes in the overall scope of work or the timing of the work that was originally agreed upon. And all reports were filed by the 12/31 statutory filing deadline. In terms of significant audit findings, the first item here talks about new accounting standards. Again, there were no new accounting standards that were implemented that had a significant impact on the town's financial statements this year. As I mentioned, the financial statements do include some significant estimates and judgments. Those consist of estimated useful lives assigned to capital assets, as well as discount rates that are utilized to determine your net pension and OPEB liabilities. We did review those estimates. We did deem them to be reasonable and consistent with what other municipalities are utilizing. I'm happy to report there were no significant difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Again, everything that we requested in connection with our audit procedures was provided by management to us in a timely manner. We had no uncorrected misstatements, so any audit adjustments that were identified were proposed and are reflected in the financials. We had no disagreements with management. We did obtain a management representation letter, and there were no unusual representations that were requested by us. Again, I just give the board members the example. If we were testing a transaction and we were unable to substantiate that transaction and we were relying on the representation from management, we would communicate that to you. And again, we're not aware of any consultations by management with any other independent accountants. Again, if we were, we would have to communicate the reason for that consultation to the board. So with that, again, I know there's a lot of information, but I will open it up to the board members if you have any questions regarding the presentation or any of the materials that were provided to you.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody virtually have a question? Okay. Same one. Anybody here this evening have any questions? John? Or statement?
Yeah. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Lauren. Slide number 8, which refers to our net pension liabilities. I think it's fair to say that a town that has 80% funded liabilities is considered to be in good shape, for the lack of a better term. Is that?
Yeah, so typically we see the funded status for governments being anywhere between 60 and 80%. And again, that's going to fluctuate year over year based on how the plan assets do with the market. But again, you're right within that range. Again, the actuaries are using appropriate assumptions. And as long as you continue to make your actuarial required contributions, again, those assets should be sufficient to pay those plan benefits.
Right. So I'd say we're a little short on the town plan, a little short on the police pension plan, but 0% on OPEB. And I think I asked this question last year. Most towns are funding their OPEB. We're not. Is that fair to say, or?
I would say probably, we do probably about 20 municipalities and probably half of them have trusts. But they're not necessarily fully funding those trusts either. So again, I would encourage the town to consult with the actuary to see what the benefits would be to actually fund a trust. Again, there's some costs associated with it, but the fact that you would be really developing or creating another revenue stream, just like you do for the pension plans with investment gains, would certainly offset some future costs associated with those healthcare increases.
Thank you.
Scott,
I'm good.
Anyone else? Yeah, I think at some point we'll address the OPEB. I think one of the benefits would be being able to invest in something into other investment vehicles would be one of the benefits. But as far as the pensions, I mean, there was a time a lot of them were under 50%.
Right.
Going back to the financial crisis, probably there was something really that's up. I think our pension obligations are pretty solid. Not something we can't continue to look at. And I also think the OPEB, although that number seems to be stand out, been paying as you go. I think it's something we can at some point start to address. But overall, I think it's a very good audit. I always look for any material findings, and here there never is, so that's always a nice thing. And our fund balance grew. So I just want to say thanks to Mike and Lauren. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions. We're good.
Just a comment.
Go
So
ahead.
hats off to Stacy and Kristen. I mean, this is a reflection on the work that you're doing. So thank you.
That's all. Nice job. Thanks, Pat.
Agreed.
Agreed. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We have discussed the action transfer of property taxes to suspense based on the recommendation from the tax collector. Tax collector is not here.
No, I told her I would cover for her.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So every year, we're required to move some receivable balances to suspense. That does not mean that they're not collectible. They're still collectible. We just move them off of the system in the tax collector's office. They will remain collectible for 15 years. So this is simply the balances, I think, from the grand list of 21 and before. So, and this is an annual requirement by the state.
So since we don't have a number, we just have to take a motion to,
I'm sorry, there was a number in the backup. It was 60,860.29.
so we want to make a motion to transfer property tax suspense base in the amount of 60,860.29. I get a motion, so moved. I get a second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made by Matt, seconded by John Rasmus. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention, that motion carries. Item 10, review the financials. Got that, so if someone's not here, it looks pretty good. Anybody have any questions about the financials? No?
Just a.
Go ahead, John.
Looks like, I guess we're considering another 500,000 out of fund balance.
That's potential.
Potential.
Correct.
Okay, I have mixed feelings on that, but obviously we're not
That's
making a
gonna vote on
decision.
it.
Yeah, we're not making a decision tonight.
I think I asked Stacy to put that in just to reflect the potential.
No, I get it.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, citizens' comments, anybody from the public would like to speak? Anybody online, Gene? Second time, third time, public information session is closed. I'd like to get a motion to adjourn, please. So moved. Motion made by Mac, I get a second.
Second.
Second by John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, meeting is adjourned at 7:30. Thanks, everyone.